Whether you live as far north as the Upper Fresh region or on the Texas-Mexico line, you're going to want to pay attention to this week's bass reports. And for you saltwater anglers, the beaches to the offshore rigs have been as good as it gets here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is back, and so are we, to bring you the best reports from around the state. And we know August is going to bring you the bait, the bend, and the bite. But Rick, you know who's also really going to tell us about the bait, the bend, and the bite?
Who?
You know, come on, who is it?
Our
Dave
boy
Farrell
Dave
at the
Farrell
CCA
over at the
Workbench, of course.
The bait, the bend, and the bite.
Do you like it?
Yeah, it's not bad.
Thank you.
I could even say it really fast on
Bait,
TV.
bend, the bite.
No, I'm not gonna.
Well, you're going to tell us all about it, though,
Look how
right?
excited he
We're going
is.
to talk about redfish tonight because that's what everything's biting.
That's what's biting.
You know, redfish are biting. We're going to talk about catching redfish.
And it's going to put a bend. All right, well, they
right.
say variety is the spice of life, so we're starting our August reports with the Upper Coast region, where Captain Caleb Harp has all the inshore and offshore variety you'll need for this weekend. Hey, Caleb.
Here.
So Caleb, you there?
I'm good.
All right,
You
let's
here?
go, bro.
Let's go, man. Well, hey, I'm going to go ahead and start it off by talking about the trout. You know, the trout fishing in Trinity Bay, it's been kind of subpar this year due to the amount of massacres that's taken place over the 2 raging floods we've had over the 2 years. But, you know, there's been a huge saltwater stack up, and this fish got kind of pounded. But, you know, even though the salinity's back, those fish are still coming back, so it's been pretty good. You know, there's been a school of trout on the flat between Reds Bayou and the HNLMP spillway up here. And every year these fish, you know, they'll pull up in this flat spawn. Mainly these fish are residential to the bay, and they'll live, you know, the fish living up in the cooling pond of the spillway, they'll come out to spawn too. Generally, every year around the full moon of June, you know, they're going to hit this flat to spawn, but this year it seems to be a little later. The trout spawn here, you know, every couple weeks in the summer, and they're typically going to spawn on a sand flat with a, you know, a lot of current close to a bayou or an estuary, allowing those fertilized eggs to float up in the marsh grass and hatch and grow up. And this flat is a perfect scenario with the deepness of the Reds Bayou that's right there and the vastness of its marsh in the Trinity River Delta. And then your wade fishing has been the best lately, being that you can pinpoint the school and stay on them better. Topwaters have by far been the best bait, you know, since there's so much natural bait in the area, you know, to compete with. Allowed high-pitched she-dogs have been even better to annoy those fish and to create a pinpoint on your lure versus all the other options to natural bait. Chartreuse, pearl chartreuse have been the best color for hookup ratios, but a blue chrome and a bone chrome bone have been good too. And these fish are going to be spawning, obviously, so there's some big females in the area, so don't be surprised if you hook up into a pretty big one. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the redfish. Those redfish are going to be out in those open water schools, and they've been producing still in the, you know, Sabine and Galveston Bay Complex. The same routine I've talked about before, been hitting on them for a couple weeks now, throwing big spoons and big swim baits to get a better casting distance and to get in front of those schools when they're running pretty fast. But just ride down the schools of the ship channel and find slicks, you know, tracking those slicks until they lead you straight to the school. Most are going to be above the slot, but still a lot of fun and a good fight. And I also got a picture there. That picture is of a customer of mine from a couple of days ago. That's Jason Johnson. He's holding up a fish as oversized red, of course, coming out of one of those schools I'm talking about. But pretty good fish there. But going to go ahead and switch it into offshore now. The red snapper bite's still been most consistent day in and day out. Fishing anything in federal waters and producing for those offshore guys. Nothing too fancy or complicated here. Any live or artificial reefs, you know, natural stuff is holding snapper right now, and they're going to eat anything live or dead for bait. You know, you pretty much can't go wrong out there. And then the tarpon deal, you know, the tarpon gig really hasn't hit full swing yet. Some of those guys are catching a few when the wind allows. Everybody is running west out of Galveston back towards the Brazos River in front of San Luis Pass. They're trolling coon pops behind the boat and casting at schools off the bow. Are pretty much our normal routine here in Galveston. And it's produced several, pretty good tarpon. This pattern really hasn't gotten really good yet, and it'll get better and better as the summer goes on, being that, you know, late late August, September, all the way through early October is really our best month too. No real giants yet, but there's been several reported in the 140 class.
All right, thank you, Caleb. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the CCA Upper Coast region hotspots. Inshore, trout on the flats between Reds Bayou and the HLP Spillway in Trinity Bay. And these fish are spawning on the sand flats, so you have an opportunity to catch one up to 8 pounds. The wade fishing with topwater, chartreuse and pearl, chartreuse she-dogs have been getting most of the strikes. And then offshore, red snappers on any of the live or artificial reefs in federal waters across the whole Upper Coast region from Sabine to Freeport. Any type of lead or live or dead bait will work best. So what do you think, Bree?
Lead bait might work too. You never
Yeah,
know.
man.
It's okay. Staying coastal, let's head down to Captain Chad Kinney in the
Wait a
Lower
minute, what's
Coast
going on
region
with your voice?
to see what his waters are bubbling with. Hey, Chad, and one sec.
I tell you what, Lower Coast is doing great, continues to be good, and I'm kind of really pumped up because my favorite months are October and September until mid-October here. So fishing's really going to change up a little bit and continue to even get better. So starting with the inshore here, out of Port Mansfield, trout fishing remains good here. Look for the deep weed beds and the sand pockets. They're still holding that 4 to 5 foot of water. They really haven't started slid up or anything yet too much. You get a few spotty ones up shallower, but maintain that 4 to 5 foot. Redfish are showing up in some good numbers finally up in the lower Laguna Madre here from north of Mansfield down to South Padre through there, up on the sand and grass flats there. So starting out with the trout are, like I said, pretty good numbers still holding. We're getting quite a few smaller ones, but still some good numbers and some good keepers. And I've tried a saltwater assassin. I like using Morning Glory, a little chartreuse tail there, working well there. Like I said, look for those 4 to 5 foot water depth with some grass beds in there. We've had some light winds, so it allows you to actually see some greener water, some deeper breaks and stuff like that. Also try some live bait, continues to produce well, using live croaker or piggies if you're using that. I recommend don't even use a chatterweight on those deeper beds. Just go ahead and use a 25-pound shock leader with a 5-aught tail hook and works good right there. So with those lighter winds, look for those deeper beds on the break. You'll be able to see them, dark colored, and it'll kind of go to a green and drift through there because it's going to be a lot slower drift. If the wind picks up later in the day, go ahead and move yourself over closer to the ICW or along any of the cuts we got along here in the south and the lower coast here. Get along some more of the current and, of course, get blocked by the wind. And if you're fishing that later in the tides there, when they're outgoing, it's kind of the best results there when the tide's sliding out. So moving over to the redfish, they're moving up in the flats, which is good to see. They've been doing that for a couple of weeks here. They're moving up in that 1 to 2 foot of water, up in shallower even early in the mornings. Favorite thing I like using is 1/8 ounce, 1/4 ounce gold spoon. Quick retrieve. Look for that bait, which you can mullet primarily down here, and they're going to move off that flat into deeper water as the day goes on. The redfish will follow them. But with the calm winds, also get there early. Go early for red fishing. Get up there in that 1 to 2 foot of water. If you got a poling skiff, it's even better. If you got a Maverick out there, and you can get up there and you can start casting early in the morning. You start looking for those wakes. They'll be pushing V's in there, and you can get through that. If not, jump out and go wade fishing is the most productive because when it's dead still down here, guys, you're not going to be able to stop and drift fish. Those fish will be way away farther than you can cast. So kind of have to stalk and get on them in there. And there's been a lot of good, slot fish, a lot of 20 to 28-inch fish in there. And keep an eye out also. There's been some schools of black drum moving in mixed with them, some bigger schools. But got a good picture of a redfish here. You can see a nice common behind the deal there, but nice is oversized 37-inch reds. We released them, but they caught some slots that day also.
Nice fish there, bud. All right, let's go offshore.
Yeah. Offshore, that's what I'm really looking forward to here in the weather, guys. Like I said, it's going to be changing up. So tarpon are showing up down here along the lower coast of the jetties, Port Aransas, Mansfield. Got a good report from South Padre Island this past weekend. So, blackfin tuna and good numbers also in the deeper shrimp belts. So starting out with the tarpon, they're showing up along the jetties, like I said. So look for bait balls early in the morning. And for the larger tarpon, if you're going for some big ones, I like using live finger mullet on a Carolina rig. And just go ahead and bump troll them or drift them around the jetties or the beachfront area. And then you'll get not as many hookups, but you're targeting the bigger fish. That's what you need to probably do. And if you want some more action, go ahead and try some. You could use bucktail jigs or swim baits. Work well with that. And on the live bait on that mullet, get back to that. Use a 9-knot circle hook with about 80-pound fluorocarbon get you a little bit better hookup ratio. Some of the guys targeting the big ones are using like 16 knots with some 200-pound, but they're not going to get quite as many hookups or bites on that. So we got a great picture of Captain Elena. She gave me a picture here. She released this past weekend. Nice tarpon there.
Yeah, it's some beautiful water those fish are in. Good job there, Chad.
Yeah.
All right, what else you got? Anything big stuff offshore? Further off?
Yeah, some big stuff. It's not as far as big fish, but I got some great stuff as far as having a blast and having fun. We got blackfin tuna. If y'all are looking for action, now's the time to do it from now to mid-October. We got blackfin tuna all over the deep shrimp boats. You got some wahoo mixed in, dorado, tons of bonita. And look for those boats about 150 foot or deeper. Put some, Rapala divers out, some cedar plugs on the troll, about 7.5, 8 knots. And I recommend running 3 line guys, and I always tell people that, and they kind of look at me crazy, but you're going to have lots of times you're going to have triple knockdowns, and you're going to land all those fish more than likely. If you got 5, 7 lines out there, you're going to be busy and having some serious issues. So, and try the divers off your flat lines there and your cedar plug out in the long center there. And if your cedar plug starts producing better than your divers, go ahead and switch them out. Every day has been different. Change them all to cedars. But if not, sometimes the divers here have been catching the better fish, catching the tuna and catching the wahoo instead of a bonita if you want to get them out of your way. Also, I recommend take some chum along with you. Take some whole chum or anything that kind of matches the shrimp boats, spot croakers, anything that you got on there. Take them with you because as the day goes on and those boats anchor up, the tuna will start sounding on you and dropping down. So you can go by with the sounder and start marking an orange bait ball. If that's a ball, it's going to be a ball of tuna. So you can throw some chum out. Lots of times during the day, they'll come up. The bonita will be the first one to show up, and then the blackfin will show up, and the blackfin will actually be more aggressive than the bonita. So once that starts happening, then go ahead and get like a 7-aught or a 5-aught live hook and pin your chum on there, free line it out there, or use a Williamson flutter jig, and you'll have a blast doing that, basically sight casting those things. So got a picture of a blackfin tuna there. We've got plenty of those. That's an average blackfin, about 15 pounds down here. We're catching them with 15 to 30 pound daily.
Nice fish. Thanks for all the great pictures this week, Chad. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the lower coast hotspots. Inshore, trout and redfish out of Port Mansfield. The trout fishing remains good. Look for the weed beds and the sand pockets in 4 to 5 feet of water. Redfish are showing up in good numbers in the lower Laguna Madre, up on the sand and the grass flats. And then offshore, tarpon and blackfin tunas. The tarpon are showing up on the lower coast at the jetties, and then blackfin tunas in good numbers offshore at the deep shrimp boats.
All right, well, coming right up on the Texas Insider Fishing Report, we're casting to the upper fresh region and then casting over to Dave at the CCA workbench. Dave, what are you casting?
Well, we're going to see what kind of shiny things we can get redfish to eat.
Ooh,
and that's what we're going to
I
do.
like shiny things.
Yeah, getting out of the boat, taking a stroll,
Taking a
throwing
little
some pretty
wade.
stuff at redfish.
I
Sounds
like
good.
it.
We'll be right back, guys.
Dave knows.
We're gonna
The
wait.
Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. The American Fishing Tackle Company. Precision tackle and performance clothing since 1958. Guy Harvey, marine wildlife artist and conservationist. Navionics. We start where the road ends. CCA Texas, a leader in marine conservation. And Okuma, inspired fishing.
Meet the water's lightest 25 horsepower 4-stroke, the all-new Yamaha F25, the new standard and 25 horsepower portable 4-strokes. At just 126 pounds, it's got the best power-to-weight ratio of any 25 horsepower 4-stroke on the water. With performance that bests the previous Yamaha F25 and features like Yamaha's BTS for precise trolling speeds, batteryless EFI, built-in resting pads, and carry handles, it's the perfect portable power for small boats.
Remember the glory days of gasoline? It's just not made the same anymore.
Kick your gas into gear with StarTron. Pump up the performance in all of your engines. Cure the problems of ethanol with the power of enzymes. And maximize your mileage every time you drive. Kickstart your engines with StarTron.
follow our guides and be up to date on all things fishing in Texas, make sure to head over to TexasInsiderFishingReport.com. You can catch all of our shows on our YouTube channel too. Remember to like us on Facebook at Texas Insider Fishing Report and follow us on Instagram at TifferTV. Also, don't forget to send and tag us in your Fishtastic photos and videos. But now it's time for Rigs and Techniques.
So we're here at the CCA workbench, and Dave,
Yes,
you
we
know,
are.
red fishing is what they do in Texas.
Yeah.
And catching big trout. But
Yeah.
this week, let's talk a little bit about how the fellas do it in Texas.
Well, you know, a lot of times they get out of the boat and wade. You know, I grew up doing a lot of that because I never had a boat, and I enjoy that because I didn't have a boat. But you don't have to have a boat in Texas for sure. You know, there's plenty of places where you can go, especially in the bays and areas where these redfish, especially in the spring, they'll come up in there chasing the bait. You know, the mullet comes through and the anchovies come in on the spring tides, and that's usually when the redfish start showing up. And if you're going to be wading in that water, especially in the early part of the year, you might want to get yourself a nice pair of thermal waders. You know, some that'll keep some heat in, a nice pair of boots. You know, a lot of times the heavier, thicker waders will come with boots in them. Right. But as the summer progresses, you can get into lighter, you know, really like just pretty much rubber pants with suspenders on them. And then when you buy those for like $10, you can put a pair of these on, and you don't have to spend a whole lot of money to have waders that'll keep you dry and comfortable, because that's really, you know, what counts is staying dry. And be careful. You might want to, if you get those rubber pants, make sure you put some other pants on underneath of them, because when you're wearing those rubber pants and the water's cold and it sucks down on you, it's like you're not wearing any pants at all. You got to put the sweatpants on or something underneath of them.
All right, so what kind of rod they like to use in Texas?
Well, you're usually going to use a bait caster, you know, because you cast a lot of heavier stuff, a lot of topwater plugs, a lot of jigs and stuff like that. So they use a lot of bait casters, and you know, not only that, you don't have to worry about getting a lot of wind knots because you're wading. You know, you don't have to worry about making, you know, really long casts. But if you're using a real heavy topwater plug and a bait caster with this, you know, 10-pound braid, you can cast that thing a mile.
Yeah.
So
no doubt.
Yep. And a topwater plug for redfish is really great, you know, especially this time of year. You know, redfish, they love to eat crabs, they love to eat shrimp, they love to eat those anchovies in there, and the mullet. And those are probably the 4 main foods that they're going to be eating in those Texas bays and inlets and whatnot.
Now, the fellas throw a lot of soft plastics once the water temperature heats up and they get past that early morning.
Yep, this chicken on the chain here, the Bass Assassin, the 4-inch or 5-inch sea shads are both good. They like to use the glow when the water gets really clean and clear. They like to use the glow, either the 4 or the 5-inch sea shad. And they'll put it on a jig head, you know, either rigged, you know, because you want to be able to make those long casts. So, you know, anytime you can add a little bit of weight to them, you know, to get them out there further and bounce those things on the bottom, you know.
So let me ask you, you like the silver or the chartreuse jig head in Texas, Dave?
I don't think it makes much of a difference.
Really?
I really don't.
Okay.
I've never been
Seems like they do put chartreuse on everything.
Well,
they put chartreuse on lunch.
If you put chartreuse on everything, you're going to catch everything on chartreuse. I mean, that's just the way those things work. You know, that's the way colors work. Now, with the topwater plugs, you want to try to, especially if you're fishing for redfish, you want to use a smaller topwater plug, because, you know, the redfish he eats with usually he's got his face in the mud, his mouth is underneath. So, you know, if you're using a great big bodied plug with a high profile and he comes up to the top with that big old head of his, he's pushing a lot of water in front of him. Right. And a lot of times if you've got a big buoyant plug sitting there, it's going to move out of the way when he tries to lift his face up and eat it with his underslung mouth.
Good point.
So if you want to have a smaller plug with a little profile, a lower profile that sits low in the water, like my favorite bait of all time, which catches both trout and redfish in great quantities, is the chug bug. And it sits, you know, like this in the water, so it's down in the water after that initial chug. And also the Skitter V, I like using that again because it sits down in the water. That V-shaped hull makes the thing sit down in the water a little better. And you know, I love to use that thing too. They love to eat it.
You know, the key, Dave, these are some really good points. What I've noticed happened over the years of guiding is that a lot of times people see that fish come up underneath them, or they come up and they pop at it. Guys, don't freak out. Just keep twitching, keep chugging, depending on the type of lure you're using, and let him take it down. Once it's down and it's gone, that's when you go ahead and set the hook. He'll eat it.
What happens most of the time with the topwater plug is people jerk it out of the fish's mouth.
Yeah.
They see, because you can see the bite, and it's the most. That's the only reason I go fishing is to watch a fish eat.
Yeah.
So I like to use that chug bug all the time. And when you see that fish eat the chug bug, if your immediate reaction is to jerk it away, you're going to jerk it away. You're going to pull it right out of his mouth before he gets down and away. And he's probably not going to come back if you do that.
Right.
Now, if you just let him eat it, and then start to wind, and then he comes tight, you're going to get it. You're going to catch him. If you don't catch him, and you just wind and he doesn't come tight and the plug floats up, you get another bite out of him.
Right.
You jerk on it, ain't gonna happen.
Good advice from the CCA workbench over here, Dave. Bree, where are we going
Don't
next?
freak out.
Don't freak out.
Don't freak out, guys. We've got Lake Fork, Caddo, Lake O'Pines, and Grapevine on the mind for the Upper Fresh region with Captain Rick Carter. So let's hear it, Rick.
Hey guys, Lake Caddo over on the east side is picking up. The water's stained about 2 foot low. The bass are biting on Texas rig brush hogs and creature baits. Green pumpkin and watermelon red with a chartreuse tail is the best colors. The morning bite is picking up on Caddo around the grass lines with hollow body frogs, buzz baits, both in white, and also the 4-inch white shad assassin is working there on Caddo. Moving on to Lake of the Pines, this is a great lake. The water's clear, about 1 foot high. The bass are biting on Texas rig crawl worms and Lake Fork LFT flipper baits and green pumpkin and chartreuse pepper. The upper north end of this lake is just lily pads everywhere, acres of them. The River to Sea bullywall frog is starting to really hammer over there in the green patterns. Just a steady walk back to the boat through those pads that are in 5 to 7 foot of waters where the big ones are. Also the weightless Cinco on braided line, the same line as the frog, because they're in those big pads and those stems will break your line if you're not equipped. The white bass are schooling there on Lake of the Pines on the main lake. Silver slabs and medium running crankbaits are catching a bunch of white bass, and thanks to Chris Brazier for that report over there.
So tell me about this photo here, Rick.
That's a young man there, Mr. Cole Metz. He was the life of the camp this year. His dad says he has a pond in their backyard, and he can't keep the boy off the water. He was, I think he got the clown award at our Camp Bass this year.
Well, let me tell you something. He's my hero because, one, he's catching fish, he's fishing all the time, and he's a clown. So speaking of that, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Navionics while we're getting ready to talk about Lake Fork. Now, guys, this is the area, this was the old road that was the dam at one time there. And one of the things that Rick explained to me is somehow or another there's been a sandbar that has formed here. It's a really good place to start fishing. The state record was taken from here. So let's take a look at the Navionics sonar chart and see exactly why. Well, the way I see it, and obviously I'm not an expert and I haven't fished there before, but it's definitely has formed what we call a pinch point. So certainly the bait has to come down this isolated area here, and guess what ends up happening? They have to go in and around that point to continue as they're swimming around that part of the dam. Do you agree with that, Rick?
Yes, sir. That Navionic there is so defined, Rick. It's say if it was somebody new coming to the lake, if they will just go to all the stuff that stands out to them on that chart right there, they'll do good on Lake Fork, because the way everything's defined on that chart, you can hit some hot spots just by pulling that up, really taking notes, pull your chart up and go right to it and go fishing. That's a state record hole right there.
All right, well, tell me about what else is happening in your Upper Fresh region.
Hey, Grapevine Lake over by DFW is kicking out some fish. They're grouped up on the riprap at the dam. They do this every summer. A 6XD Strike King crankbaits, white, black back, the shaky heads later in the day with a trick worm on it. The big ones have been caught on skitter walks real early morning, right up on the rocks at the dam. That's where the big fish have been caught the last week. Moving on to Fork, most of the action here is deep water techniques like PBJ, football head jig with a twin trailer. Your electronics is playing big time right now. They're grouping up 10 to 15 fish in a group, and you'll catch about half of them out of that group, and the others will get educated and move on. So you gotta rely on that right now. The 5-inch storm swim bait, the pre-rigged, and the barfish pattern, that's a big-time bait here at Fork. The night fishing's still going on. Randy Oldfield night guides all the time. They've been catching them on the 10-inch black ribbon tail worm on a 3/16 Texas rig. That's been a good way to catch them at night, Rick.
Well, tell me about this last photo there, Pop. No photo? I'm sorry, I got it wrong.
No.
I'm sorry. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots. We appreciate that great report. And Lake O of the Pines, the bass are good on frogs and weightless Cinco. The north end of the lake, early morning around the acres of lily pads for those bass. And then Lake Grapevine, the bass are on the rocks feeding on the shad, crankbaits, and yellow magics are good at first light.
All right, Rick, well, the habitat programs of CCA and CCA Texas have provided over $250,000 towards the RGV Reef. Last month, 12,000 cinder blocks were deployed at the 1,650-acre site. This project, led by the Friends of RGV Reef, is the largest permitted nearshore site in Texas. This artificial reef will provide critical habitat for marine species and will benefit recreational anglers, divers, and coastal communities for years to come. Way to go, CCA.
Man,
whoa.
Leading the way in conservation.
Leading the way. All right, we've got a little fresh and saltwater headed your way in the lower fresh and middle coast regions, so stay hooked. We'll be back in a jiff. Jiff.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Contender Boats, performance through innovation. Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. CCA Star, fishing fun for giant prizes and scholarships. Costa Sunglasses, see what's out there. Power Pole, swift, silent, secure. And King Sailfish Mounts, www.kingsailfish.com.
At Yamaha, reliability is a family tradition. Meet the next generation. 4 new advanced technology-inspired inline 4-cylinder performers. Bred from the reliability and boater satisfaction that is part of Yamaha's DNA. They prove that when power gets lighter, faster, stronger, and smarter, boating gets even better. And more satisfying for boaters like you.
Hey, how do you like your Contender? How do I like my Contender? What's not to like? Dude, I just saw a Contender, and man, I gotta get me one.
As close as you're gonna get to a sure thing for catching billfish is Guatemala.
They're here, man. This has been a 20-year run, buddy. These things haven't left, there's no cycle.
When it comes to sail fishing, this is the real deal.
The amount of sailfish here is ridiculous.
So one of the things that we got to do when we get our fire disc and it's new like this So we gotta season it. So what seasoning it means is we're gonna take some oil and we're just gonna wipe it on the grate itself. And the reason we wanna do this is because we want it to cook into the metal so that, one, it makes it easier to clean, two, it won't rust, and it simply just makes everything that much easier down the road. Now, my favorite dish to cook when I'm doing a shore lunch is something that's real easy. It's basically, we do it over in the Bahamas quite often, and the reason why I like it so much is it's really easy because of the pop tops and the jars, and I can simply get rid of the containers. So we have artichoke, quartered artichoke hearts. We're gonna have some capers, maybe a little more. Again, we wanna drain these juices. And what I'm doing is creating some sauteed vegetables. Now this is part of my favorite part. The mancini roasted peppers, sweet peppers. I put the juice in there with those. I'm gonna cut them up a little. And then we're gonna just take pieces after this gets thawed. We're gonna take pieces, or sauteed, I'm sorry, not thawed. And we'll lay the cobia on top. It's really simple. So while I'm waiting, I'm gonna cut up these peppers so that we have a lot more points. And then we're just gonna keep stirring this around. I got it on high, cooking in the center. Makes it real simple. We're gonna spin it. I'm gonna put a little garlic salt here in a second, and it'll make it work real well. The whole idea here is to saute these vegetables, and once the vegetables get cooked, then we're gonna lay our fish fillets on top. So now that the fillets have been sauteing in the juices, it's ready to eat. It's gonna be so good. Oh, look at that. That's pretty good right there.
The Yeti Laura Fresh region is always showing off the big, and so can we expect more of some big Texas bass this weekend, Mr. Reed?
Oh my God. What do you think about that intro there, Matt?
What? That's what you're
Everything's
supposed
bigger
to
in
do.
Texas.
That's what's supposed to happen.
So let's move on here.
All right. Well, let's talk about some of those South Texas bass. We're going to start off with at Fayette County Lake. Bass are biting really well right there right now. Out on the main lake points in 10 to 20 foot of water, you catch them really well on a Texas rig 10-inch worm. They're grouped up. Look for them grouped up on your Low Ranch Electronics, and then right now you can catch a bunch of them on a spot when you find them. They're also concentrated on any rock-type structure that you can find in that same depth. So get you a Texas rig worm, get out there and get after them. It can be slow, but when you find them, you can just really bust them up right now. Moving on toward the Austin area. In Lake Decker, the school fish are going strong. It's always fun in the summer when they start schooling, chasing bait around. They're doing it first thing in the morning and also later in the day out on the main lake. You can catch them on a Super Fluke Junior, also on a belly-weighted fluke. Just let it fall through the action. When you see them busting on top, just throw it out there and let it fall. And want to pick it up like a dying shad, and sometimes you'll catch you a big one down under them. There's also some good fish at Decker on Cincos on the outside edge of the hydrilla. So that's the other thing that's going on there at Lake Decker. Gonna move on to another lake in that Austin area, just north of Austin. If you want to dodge the Texas heat right now, Lake LBJ is fishing very well at night. The best pattern is kind of a pattern that you have on a lot of lakes that are, that are populated, that have a lot of boat houses, a lot of boat docks. You want to fish the green lights at night. Those lights attract all the bait fish, and all kinds of things come to eat those bait fish. So, you're catching a lot of big bass right now doing that on a 3 to 4 inch swim bait, just swimming it through those lights. You kind of never know what to expect fishing those lights. Sometimes you'll catch great big bass. One light will have a whole school of white bass on it. Sometimes you might even catch a great big old catfish. So, there's a lot of food drawn to those lights. So that's why you've got all sizes of fish in the food chain. But the bass fishing is really good there right now under the lights on LBJ to dodge that heat. Next lake, we're going to move on out to the west, out to Lake Amistad. It's still fishing really well. Early in the mornings, you can catch them on top waters and frogs around the shallow hydrilla and matted pondweed. As the sun gets higher, they're moving out to the outside edge of the hydrilla. You want to take a lightweight Texas rig 10-inch plastic worm, either in some of the watermelon or green pumpkin shades. Also, one of my favorites is like a plum apple color, a plum worm with some blue and green glitter mixed in. Throw it on the outside edge of the grass with about a 1/4 ounce to 5/16 weight. Outside edges are holding some of the big ones, and also pay attention to the open holes up in the inside of that hydrilla. Those open areas a lot of times are brim beds, and those brim will spawn on every moon in the summer. So,
tell me about the photo here, Matt.
That's Greg Boyk with Anglers Angle Guide Service. Sent me the report on Fayette County. It's a big one he caught the other day on a Texas rig.
All right. What about the catfish, Bub?
And catfish at Lake Amistad there's easy limits right now, according to Ray Hansen. When the channel cat are shallow around the grass, he's fishing under a cork, 5 to 10 foot of water, and the holes on the grass are outside edge. Baiting the area with sour grain is really important. The blue cat is catching them really deep off river ledges in 80 to 120 foot of water. Also baiting that area with grain, and they're catching blue cat up to 20 pounds. So lots of fun with the catfish. That picture is a full limit of combination channel cat and blue cat that his customers caught just the other day.
Great report. Thank you so much for the pictures. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the lower fresh hotspots. Fayette County Lake fishing is awesome. Get a Texas rig 10-inch worm and fish the main drop-offs and rock structures. Then Lake Amistad, catfish are biting well. The channel cats are shallow holes in the hydrilla, and then the blue cats are in 80+ feet of water on rock ledges. Sour grain baited areas is a big key to catching those kitty cats.
Speaking of big, did you hear how many times he said big in his report?
It's a big man.
I know, that's what I'm saying, it's big. Bink Grimes is now gonna let you in on the Middle Coast region's secrets, so listen up, go for it, Bink.
Hey, this summer might have been the best I can remember in the surf. It's just been so good. The past week we caught 4 to 7 pound trout out there. A lot of people use live bait for pretty quick limits on live shrimp and live croakers. We got a lot of our water back from the low tides of July, and that extra foot of water pushed those trout right on the beach. I mean, you can like stand on the beach and cast, not get your feet wet, and catch fish in the first cut. So it's been really good. Man, I fed them top waters. A few blow-ups in this world rival a surf trout banging a plug, and it seems the best bites in the surf have come on chrome mirror she-dogs and she-pups. Those baits are just a little bigger and noisier, and I think the fish locate them a lot better among all the gobs of menhaden and mullet and shrimp, and there is just tons and tons and tons of bait fish in the Gulf right now. Those Gulf fish are just wired different. They have to be because they're not on top of the food chain like they are in the bay. So man, when they hit it, they give you a rip. It seems like when we're catching the bigger trout, the bigger the trout, the more the sharks show up. You can try and reel a fish in fast and horse them to the boat, but when you're dealing with a 5-pounder with waves breaking over the top, it's kind of tough to rush them on a light graphite rod. But it just seems like those sharks like those fish 5 pounds or better. The guys in Port O'Connor have been enjoying the same. Many of them are heading out the south of Pascaval and fishing the Darling and Shrimp Wreck and hanging out around the J. They're walking the rocks and they're tossing she-dogs and skitter walks and super spooks. Along Surfside Beach near Freeport, you don't have to have a boat. There's miles of sand you can fish on foot, and it coughs up good trout all the time as well. Most are tossing plugs and soft plastics there, and some of them are taking bait buckets and soaking live shrimp. One thing that happens when the surf is flat, people forget about the bays, and the bays are just as good right now. The showgrass shorelines from Matagorda to Seadrift are still holding lots of fish. It's just a lot quieter out there right now because the surf's so good. And I got a picture there of a 7-pounder caught by Captain Tony Alexander in East Matagorda Bay on a Norton bull minnow. So we're still catching big fish in East Bay. So it's been a great summer doing that. I'm gonna switch to inshore redfish. And the entire coast last week, like I said, we got a shot in the arm. We got about 2 feet of our tides back, and it blows the tides up because of the low pressure in the Gulf. And that pumped water back in the back lace and pushed those redfish back to their normal spot. There's still a lot of redfish in the surf, and most of those fish are right on the beach as well. You make long casts with the boats, and a lot of people nailed them with live shrimp, but they blew up my topwater last week from Surfside, Matagorda, Port O'Connor Jetty. They're just holding lots and lots of redfish right now. And those back lake areas in Matagorda, like Oyster Lake, Crab Lake, Lake Austin, are good. Around Port O'Connor, Shoalwater, Pringle, Conti, and Fifth Lakes are holding big schools. And then those waders along West Matagorda Bay, real tight to the grass, they're catching them on croakers and shrimp and gulp. And don't be surprised to see redfish under birds. I started seeing some of that this morning, matter of fact. I'll go offshore. A red snapper, what can you say about them? The weekends have been a boom for red snapper. Since the season's open Friday through Sunday, many anglers are choosing to fish the weekend so they can get their snapper. The good news is most of the seas have been 1 to 2 feet, so it's just been great. You can check the cleaning table at the harbor, and you see just how many snapper are there. I'll go to tarpon. Man, the consensus among tarpon is most of the fish are rolling and daisy chaining in about 40 foot of water, just a few miles off the beach, Freeport to Matagorda. However, there's 90-plus feet of water in the channel at Port O'Connor Jetty, and a lot of those tarpon are loafing and rolling, and they're intercepting baits, exiting the channel. Just a lot of pogies coming in from the Gulf, and they're shadowing those pogies. And many of those boats are posted up on the tip of the jetty and wait for those schools, pogies to roll in. Or we're popping them with finger mullet, plugs, and coon pops, and there's just a lot of menhaden, and that's what those tarpon are doing. They have no choice. I do the same thing. Just follow that bait in.
All right, you covered a lot of stuff this week, Bink. Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots for the Middle Coast region. Inshore trout, they're all good from Surfside Beach to the beach in Port O'Connor. Chrome she-dogs, live shrimp, live croakers will work best. Work the first gut on the incoming tide. And then offshore, tarpon are showing up just off of the beach and the jetties in Port O'Connor. Drift live menhaden, mullet, or croakers for live bait, or you might want to toss a plug that's slow sinker like a mirror lure.
And you can't forget those coon pops.
Nope. You can't forget about a coon
We've
pop.
saved the Middle Fresh region for last, but that doesn't mean it's least, but it certainly means we still have our new product segment with Dave Farrell. We love you, Dave. What
Coon
you got?
pops or whopper ploppers.
Whopper ploppers.
Yeah, coon pop, whopper plopper.
So fun.
It is.
Can,
All right, we'll
can
be
a
right
man
back.
just get a normal name?
No.
No.
It's Bill.
That ain't no fun in that.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Maverick Boat Group, makers of premium boat brands Maverick, Hughes, and Pathfinder. Rapala, catch the latest at rapala.com. Yeti, built for the wild. Building Conservation Trust, CCA's National Habitat Program. StarTron, cures and prevents ethanol fuel problems. And Casa Vieja Lodge, 5-star angling in beautiful Guatemala.
The ultimate predator has evolved again. Now, Yamaha VMAX SHO Performance is prowling the waters in 4 hungry, exciting new models. With their 4 valves per cylinder and double overhead cam fuel-injected design, these advanced 4-stroke predators are taking performance to a whole new level. Vicious, lean, efficient. VMAX SHO. The pack is growing.
Thanks for tuning in to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram to keep up with our captains, contests, and appearances. You never have to miss a show. You can find full episodes as well as special segments right on our homepage. Just head to TexasInsiderFishingReport.com for everything you need to know to stay hooked up.
Hi, I'm Robert Shamlin with JL Marine Systems with your Power Pole Tip of the Week. Last week we talked about how the advanced features of our Sea Monster system allows you to better control drift paddles in deep water. But a lot of people wonder, what is the Sea Monster control system? Well, basically it's the smarts in our parts. It gives you all of the additional features like bottom sensing, auto up and down, speed control, or independent control of multiple anchors when you're using duals. It's also an all-wireless system, so it makes installation very quick and easy. When you're programming the controllers, it's much quicker with the Sea Monster control system. In fact, it's so smart, it even comes with its own app packed with all kinds of additional features that we're going to talk about in next week's show. And that's your Power Pole Tip of the Week. So we're here at the CCA workbench, new products, got a lot of cool stuff this week. Let's just dive in there.
All right, but first off, we're going to start with that nice watch right there from Hook and Gaff. This is called the Sport Fisher Black. Ooh. And it comes with a black dial. It's got a titanium case with that flat black coating. It's a PVD coated titanium casing. It's got a scratch proof sapphire face. Yep, and a Swiss movement. It's also got a screw down crown and a watertight back. It goes 200 meters. If you're down there 200 meters, you're dead long before the watch is. Anyway, it's got a rubber impregnated with vanilla wristband.
I know.
So it smells like vanilla. I've had a lot of rubber dive watches, and they end up stinking after a while, just because I don't know why.
That's not gonna
it has nothing
here.
to do with me, really. I think that's just everybody. But I'm going with that. So that's why they impregnate that with vanilla. It wasn't just because of me.
All the letters are
correct.
illuminated.
Yep, they got that the Microtech titanium little glow in the dark forever.
Great. Hook and Gaff.
Right.
Great watch,
Hook and
guys.
Gaff.
Looking good. I
That's
know
the
they make
Sport
ladies.
Fisher Black.
Bree's wearing the ladies model.
Correct.
All right, so we got some Sea Sucker.
Yeah, these are the kayak roof racks and paddle boards. These things are made to transport your kayaks, your canoes, your paddle boards, your surfboards, whatever. They're
adjustable.
They're adjustable from 24 inches to 44 inches. So if you've got a great big, SUV down to a Volkswagen, it'll fit them all.
What I like about this, Dave, is that they made this for the roof so that it turns and can be right up there by the windshield.
Right.
And it's real simple with the Sea Sucker. You just sit there and pump the ball when it's on the roof until the orange part disappears.
Right.
Do the same with that.
Yep. And there's 6 of them on there's 6 of them on that bottom one, and you can also stack these. Once you put these on the bottom, you can put this on top of the board that's on here, and then you have another place to put another board.
Yeah, so whether you have a surfboard, a wind board, a paddle board, nobody goes paddle boarding by themselves. There's usually 2,
that's right.
A couple. So what Sea Sucker did is they created, here's one to put on the truck, put your board on there, fasten it down, and then this goes on the bottom of the board, and now you can carry them in tandem.
Right. It also comes with 2 10-foot straps and some lube and an extra Sea Sucker in case one of these things go wrong.
Right.
But I've never had one go wrong. I don't know.
SeaSucker.com, right, Dave?
That's it. SeaSucker.com.
All right. What else you got?
All right. I got some stuff in there somewhere. Oh, that's the Whopper Plopper I was talking about. This is the Larry Dahlberg Whopper Plopper, and it's a a top water plug, and it's very unique, as you can tell.
So is Larry.
Yes. Anyway, you can roll that thing, buzz it on the surface. This whole back end moves around and makes an incredible noise. It goes plop, 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 plop. That's hence the name Whopper Plopper. And they got a 90 version and that's the 90, and then they got a 130. The new ones are coming out with this really strong hook. You can tell that's a big fat hook on there.
Yeah. Super
strong, and they also rattle. This one rattles. This one does not, really. This is a rattle. It's got a rattle inside. So
Pretty work, Larry.
River to Sea USA.com.
All right,
for
what
that
else?
one. Well, gotcha jigs. You know, I like to use gotcha plugs. Gotcha now has a little jig out. You know, we were talking earlier about, you know, blackfin tunas offshore there. You know, if you throw one of those little suckers in a school of blackfin tunas that are eating little stuff, he's going to pile on it. They got 1 ounce, a ½ ounce. I love all the gotcha stuff. You can vertical jig that one or cast it and rip it.
Great for fishing off a pier,
Everything,
jetties,
exactly.
land fishing. Good job, Dave.
All right.
You covered it very well.
Woo.
Thank you so much, Bree.
try.
Got one more to cover.
Well, I have the ladies hooking gaff on, and it smells bellissima. Okay, Toledo Bend and Sam Rayburn are in the spotlight tonight with your guide, Steven Johnson. What's going on, Steven? I can't wait to fish with you next weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Looking forward to it, man. We've got a bunch of rain and got some tropical stuff coming in. We don't have any hurricane stuff, but right where I live on that Texas-Louisiana border, we've getting rain and rain and rain. And called the trip yesterday, called the trip today, but it looks like tomorrow we're going to get a break and get out there. So next week when you get here, the weather's looking great. So, hey, well, I want to talk about some catfish on Toledo Bend. The crappie fishing has really kind of slowed down with all the crazy weather we've been having. Gary, the boy that works for me, the crappie guide here, he does a lot of catfishing. What he's doing, he's got several places. He's taking range cubes, like we had talked about earlier this year, and going and baiting 3 or 4 different spots. And sometimes he's doing it in the evening, and other times he's just going out in the morning and dropping those range cubes on the bends of the creeks, on the main lake point. And if he can find a stump where he can tie the boat up, it works out real good. But God, Toledo Bend so high right now, there's not a lot of stumps, showing to speak of. And he's dropping those range cubes from 20 to 30 foot, and he's fishing really from a foot to 2 foot off the bottom. He drops the range cubes, waits, an hour, and comes back by, pulls up on the spot, and you can sit there and catch him. And as soon as they slow down, he'll go over to his next spot, and he's just making a laugh. And he's using cheese bait, punch cheese bait, and he's fishing, just drop it down the bottom, make a couple cranks off the bottom. And some of the fish, some days are in that 22 foot, some days are in that 25. If you have some in bigger storms, it seems like it's pushing them out to the 28, 30 foot range. But catching just not a bunch of big ones, but just a lot of good 1.5 pound to 3 pound, just some great eating catfish. And I got a picture there. That's a couple of his clients last week went out on a 3.5 hour trip, and they kept 50 catfish, and you can look at them right there in that photo. They're just some fine eaters right there.
All right, let's talk a little bit about bass and Sam Rayburn. What you got?
Okay, the bass fishing over at Rayburn, the water's still high. Just about my whole region's high. You can really flip the bushes still. You can flip the willows, and you can flip the hay grass. But really, the frog bite is really strong. It's been going with the full moon this past week. The moon's on the decline, so really that early morning and that late afternoon bite is really coming on strong. But that frog bite right in the middle of the day, it's really hard to beat it. Early in the morning, you can put some kind of popper on, a pawpaw or yellow magic, get on the edge of the hay grass, on the edge of the hydrilla, working real good. And then once that sun gets up a little bit, you can back out and throw a Texas rig worm. And there's a lot of good fish being caught. And we had talked about the school fish last week, but God, the big storms and the weather the last couple of weeks, last week has really slowed us down, on that. But a couple of days this week before the big storms moved in, really had some good catches. I believe that picture there you have is old Bradley Odom, a good friend, good customer of mine, and that's a 4-pounder that I caught, an 8-pounder that he caught. We caught those fish at the same time. I set the hook and got the fish about halfway in, and he set the hook. So not many days, on any lake you catch a 4-pounder and 8-pounder together. So, but it's been real good both lakes. But have you got your kids? There's a lot of people calling. We still got a few openings. So if you want to try to get your kids in before they get back to school, give us a shout, and we can get you out there and show you a great time.
So, Steven, when Bree gets there, what we want to do is shoot as much B-roll as we can of you and Bree. So what do you think you're going to have in mind? You're going to try to do a little bit of everything? Obviously don't try to hit the home run, because I've seen a lot of guys try to go catch a 10-pounder and come up short. Let's go ahead and catch a bunch of fish and then go try to get that big one on. What do you think?
Yeah, that's what we're going to do. The weather's looking great for next week. So if we get some big sun, that topwater fishing should get great. And one thing, too, with that big sun, it'll get them crappie back going on the docks and around some brush, so we can kind of mix it up and get a variety. in those 2 days of fishing. Looking forward to it.
Well, brother, I know she
too.
can't hardly sleep at night. I got to hear about it every time. I can't wait to fish with Steven. I can't wait to go fish with Bert. I can't
Maybe
wait
I'll
to
let
go
you
to
take
Texas.
the whopper flopper.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much. Great report, and we're looking forward to her fishing with you. I'm excited to report back to all our Texas viewers. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the Middle Fresh hotspots. Our man Steven said catfish all over the Middle Fresh region. Get a bag of those range cubes and drop them in a couple places. The best depth is 20 to 30 feet, either on the main lake points, river, or channel bends. And get some catfish bait and have fun. This was going to work very well in the middle of the lake, in the middle of the Fresh region. Great action and great eating too. Right?
Rick stole my range cubes.
Range cubes.
Range cubes.
He stole my cubes.
Maybe I'll get to use some range cubes with Steven when I go out there.
All right, I hope you do.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching. We will see you
Have you seen these range cubes?
next week. Bye.